Millionaire CEO mocked his ex-wife at his Christmas gala for being alone. Then her triplets ran out and called her mommy. The champagne glass slipped from Daniel Watson's fingers and shattered against the marble floor, the crystal exploding into 1,000 glittering pieces that scattered across the ballroom like fallen stars. But he did not hear it. He did not see it. Every fiber of his being was frozen, locked onto 3 small faces that had just burst through the crowd of New York's elite, 3 pairs of eyes that looked exactly like his own staring back at him with innocent curiosity. Mommy, mommy, mommy. The voices rang out through the stunned silence of the Grand Meridian Hotel ballroom, cutting through the orchestral Christmas music, through the polite murmur of 1,000 conversations, through every carefully constructed assumption Daniel Watson had made about the woman standing before him. Emily stood motionless, her emerald gown catching the light from the crystal chandeliers as 3 small hurricanes in Christmas, red and green, launched themselves at her legs. 1 heartbeat. 2. The entire room holding its breath. Daniel's voice came out barely above a whisper, cracked and broken in ways his voice had never been before. They are 5 years old. Yes. We have been divorced for 3 years. Yes. Which means you were pregnant when I served you those papers. When I told you that you could not give me what I needed. When I called you defective and threw you away like you meant nothing. Emily met his eyes, and in them was not the broken woman he had discarded. In them was steel forged in fire, strength built from devastation, a queen who had risen from the ashes of everything he had destroyed. I was 6 weeks pregnant with triplets when you decided I was worthless, Daniel. I did not know yet. Neither of us did. But you did not wait to find out, did you? You just decided I was defective merchandise and moved on to the next chapter of your legacy. The ballroom had gone completely silent. 500 of the most powerful people in New York watching their golden boy crumble, watching his carefully constructed world collapse around him with the simple word, Mommy. But to understand the weight of this moment, to truly feel the earthquake that was reshaping every assumption and rewriting every narrative, we need to go back. Back to the woman who walked into this ballroom tonight with nothing but her dignity and the secret that was about to change everything. Back to the love story that became a tragedy, that became a triumph, that became something none of them ever expected. This is the story of Emily Coleman, and it is going to change the way you think about second chances, about redemption, and about the people who throw us away without realizing they are discarding the very thing they claimed they wanted. 6 years ago, Emily Coleman believed in fairy tales. She believed in them because she was living one, or so she thought. 26 years old, freshly promoted at a prestigious marketing firm, and engaged to Daniel Watson, the most eligible bachelor in Manhattan. The heir to Watson Enterprises. The man whose smile could light up a room and whose attention made you feel like the only person on earth. They had met at a charity gala, of course. That was how things happened in Daniel's world. Everything was curated, positioned, perfectly staged for maximum impact. Emily had been there representing her firm, nervous in a borrowed dress, completely out of her depth among the champagne and couture. And then Daniel had appeared at her elbow, asked her about the art on the wall, and actually listened to her answer. That was the thing about Daniel Watson in those early days. He listened. He paid attention. He made you feel seen in ways that felt almost uncomfortable in their intensity. When he looked at you, it was like being caught in a spotlight, warm and golden, and impossible to escape. Their courtship was a whirlwind. Private dinners at restaurants with month-long waiting lists. Weekend trips to Paris because he wanted to show her his favorite cafe. Flowers that arrived at her office every Monday, always with a note that referenced some private joke between them. He was attentive, romantic, everything a woman could want. And Emily fell. Hard and fast and completely. The proposal came 6 months in, on a private rooftop overlooking the city, with a ring that probably cost more than her annual salary. She said yes before he finished asking. Of course she said yes. How could she? This was the fairy tale. This was the dream. This was everything she had ever wanted wrapped up in a perfectly tailored suit with eyes that promised forever. The wedding was featured in 3 magazines. 500 guests. A dress designed specifically for her. Daniel's mother had cried, though whether from joy or something else, Emily never quite figured out. But none of that mattered, because when she walked down that aisle and saw Daniel waiting for her, she had never been more certain of anything in her life. For the first year, marriage was everything she had hoped it would be. They bought a penthouse with views of Central Park. They hosted dinner parties that were the envy of their social circle. They talked about the future, about children, about the family they would build together. Daniel wanted an heir. He did not hide this. It was expected, he explained. Part of the responsibility that came with his name, his legacy, his position. Emily wanted children too, so this seemed like perfect alignment rather than a warning sign. But months passed, and Emily did not get pregnant. At first, it was not a concern. These things take time, the doctor said. Relax, enjoy each other, let nature take its course. But Daniel's patience was not infinite. His mother began making pointed comments at family dinners. His father started asking when they would hear good news. The pressure built slowly, imperceptibly, like water rising around her ankles before she realized she was drowning. "You need to see a specialist," Daniel said one evening. His voice was calm, reasonable, the voice of a man discussing a business problem that required a solution. "We need to figure out what is wrong. What is wrong? Not what might be happening, not what we can explore together. What is wrong?" The language of defect, the language of failure. Emily saw the specialist. She submitted to tests that were invasive and humiliating and treated her body like a machine that needed debugging. The results came back inconclusive. Nothing obviously wrong, but nothing obviously right either. More tests were recommended, more procedures, more waiting. And while they waited, Daniel grew distant. He worked later, traveled more. When he was home, he was physically present but emotionally absent, as if he had already begun to check out of a life that was not delivering what he had ordered. Emily tried everything. Fertility treatments that made her emotional and exhausted. Diets and supplements and old wives' tales from desperate internet forums. She tracked her cycles obsessively, turned intimacy into a clinical exercise, lost herself in the desperate pursuit of becoming what Daniel needed her to be. It was never enough. The comments started small. A sigh when she mentioned another negative test. A tightening of his jaw when his mother asked about grandchildren. A coolness in his eyes when he looked at her, as if he was reassessing her value and finding her wanting. "Maybe if you relaxed more," he said once. "My mother thinks you are too stressed." That is probably the problem. Maybe if you were more patient, Emily thought but did not say. Maybe if you remembered that I am your wife, not a breeding program. But she did not say it. She swallowed her hurt and her anger and her growing fear because she loved him, because she believed in their marriage, because she could not imagine her life without the fairy tale she had staked everything on. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. They had been to see yet another specialist, a renowned fertility expert who had reviewed all the previous tests and recommended a new approach. Emily had felt hopeful for the first time in months. There were options, the doctor explained. Paths they had not tried. No reason to give up. Daniel was silent on the drive home. Not contemplative silence, not processing silence. Cold silence. The kind of silence that fills a car like poison gas, making it hard to breathe. When they got back to the penthouse, he did not take off his coat. "Emily," he said, and something in his voice made her stomach drop. "We need to talk." She knew then. Before he said another word, she knew. The way you know when a storm is coming, even though the sky is still clear. The way your body recognizes danger before your mind catches up. "I have been thinking about our situation," Daniel continued. His voice was measured, careful, rehearsed. This was not a conversation. This was a performance he had practiced. "And I have come to a conclusion." "What conclusion?" "This is not working. You are not working. I need an heir, Emily. It is not negotiable. It is my responsibility to my family, to the company, to everything my father and grandfather built. And you cannot give me that." "We do not know that for certain," Emily heard herself say. "The doctor said there are still options. We could try." "Try for how long?" "Another year. 2. 5. Meanwhile, I am not getting any younger. The company needs stability. My parents need to see the legacy secured. I cannot wait forever for something that may never happen." "So what are you saying?" Daniel reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. The paper was thick, expensive, the kind of stationery used for important documents. Emily's hands were shaking when she took it. Divorce papers. The words on the page blurred together, but she did not need to read them to understand what was happening. Her husband was ending their marriage because her body had not produced a child on his timeline. She was being discarded, returned, found defective, and cast aside. "Sign them," Daniel said. "My lawyers have been generous. You will have enough to start over somewhere else." Somewhere else, as if she was a problem to be relocated, as if 3 years of marriage could be reduced to a transaction, a real estate deal that had not appreciated as expected. "I love you," Emily whispered. "Does that not matter at all?" "Love is not enough," Daniel replied. And the worst part was that he sounded genuinely sorry. Not sorry enough to change his mind, but sorry in the way you might be sorry for running over a squirrel. Unfortunate but unavoidable. Emily signed the papers the next day. She did not fight. She did not argue. She did not call lawyers or demand more than his generous offer. She simply signed her name at the bottom of the document that declared her marriage over and walked away from everything she had believed in. The settlement was indeed generous, enough to relocate, enough to start over, enough to survive while she figured out what the rest of her life would look like without the fairy tale she had built it around. She moved to Denver 3 weeks later, far enough from New York that she would not accidentally run into anyone from her old life, far enough that she could disappear into anonymity and grieve without witnesses. She rented a small apartment. She cried herself to sleep every night for a month. She wondered if Daniel was right, if she really was broken, defective, less than. And then, 6 weeks after the divorce was finalized, she woke up feeling strange. Not sick exactly, just off, tired in a way that sleep did not fix, nauseous in the mornings, her body behaving in ways she did not recognize. Stress, she told herself. Heartbreak, the aftershocks of having your entire life demolished. But the symptoms did not go away. If anything, they got worse. Finally, reluctantly, she made an appointment with a doctor, just to rule things out, just to confirm that she was not dying of something on top of everything else. The doctor ran tests. Standard stuff, she said. Blood work, hormone panels, the usual. Emily waited in the sterile exam room, picking at her cuticles, trying not to think about how different this was from the marble floors and designer furniture of her old life. The doctor returned with a strange expression on her face. Not concern exactly. Something more complex. "Miss Coleman," the doctor said slowly, "I have some news that may come as a surprise. Am I sick?" "No." The doctor paused. "You are pregnant." The words did not compute. Emily heard them, processed the sounds, understood each word individually. But together, they made no sense. She was pregnant. She was pregnant. After 2 years of trying, after specialists and treatments and invasive procedures, after being told her body was failing, after being thrown away for her inability to conceive, she was pregnant. "There is more," the doctor continued. "Based on the hormone levels and the ultrasound, it appears you are carrying multiples. Triplets. 3 separate heartbeats. Congratulations." Emily did not remember leaving the doctor's office. She did not remember the drive back to her apartment or climbing the stairs or collapsing onto her bed. What she remembered was the sound of her own laughter mixing with tears, the cosmic joke of it all hitting her with full force. She had been pregnant when Daniel served her with divorce papers. Pregnant when he called her defective. Pregnant when she signed away her marriage because she believed she could not give him what he wanted. She had been carrying his legacy the entire time. For one wild moment, she considered calling him, telling him, watching his world turn inside out the way hers had. But the moment passed, and in its place came something colder, harder, more protective. Daniel had made his choice. He had looked at her, at their marriage, at everything they had built, and he had decided she was not worth keeping. He had not waited. He had not been patient. He had not considered that the future might hold something different than the present. He had thrown her away. And now she was going to build a life without him. A life for herself and for the 3 miracles growing inside her. A life that would prove, once and for all, that Emily Coleman was not defective. She had never been defective. She had simply been married to a man too impatient and too cruel to deserve what she had to offer. Daniel Watson would never know about these children. He had forfeited that right when he chose his legacy over his love. The next 3 years tested Emily in ways she had never imagined. Pregnancy with triplets was brutal. Her body expanded in ways that seemed physically impossible. She was on bed rest for the final 2 months, terrified of early labor, terrified of complications, terrified that she would finally have what she wanted only to lose it at the last moment. But she did not lose them. King came first, serious and squalling, his eyes already holding that analytical intensity that would define him. Kira followed 3 minutes later, dramatic even in birth, announcing her arrival with a cry that echoed through the delivery room. And Kyla, quiet Kyla, slipped into the world last, blinking at the lights with an expression of profound observation. 3 babies. 3 perfect, impossible, life-changing babies. Emily's sister Grace moved in for the first 6 months. Without her, Emily might not have survived. The sleep deprivation alone was enough to break a person. 3 infants who ate and slept on different schedules, who demanded attention in overlapping waves, who turned her apartment into a battlefield of diapers and bottles and endless laundry. But she survived. More than survived. She discovered reserves of strength she had never known existed. And somewhere in those exhausted, chaotic, beautiful months, an idea began to form. Emily had always been good at marketing. It was what she had done before Daniel, before the fairy tale consumed her identity. She understood branding and positioning, and how to make people want things they did not know they needed. And now, stuck at home with 3 infants, she began to think about all the products she was using, all the beauty and skincare routines she had abandoned, all the ways the industry failed to speak to women like her. Women who were exhausted. Women who were rebuilding. Women who wanted to feel beautiful without having the time or energy for complicated routines. Luminance Cosmetics started in her kitchen. The first products were simple. A cleanser that worked in 30 seconds. A moisturizer that did not require 6 other steps. A lipstick that stayed on through midnight feedings and did not require a mirror to apply. Emily tested everything on herself, refined formulas, learned about ingredients with the obsessive focus of someone who had nothing else to do during the rare quiet moments between feedings. Triplets were 18 months old when she sold her first product. A friend from Denver who had mentioned dry skin. Emily gave her a sample of the moisturizer she had developed. The friend told another friend. That friend told 5 more. Within 6 months, Emily was fulfilling orders from her dining room table while 3 toddlers destroyed her living room. Within a year, she had moved into a small office space and hired 2 employees. Within 2 years, Luminance Cosmetics had distribution in 30 states and a valuation that made venture capitalists start paying attention. And now, 3 years after Daniel Watson had thrown her away, Emily Coleman stood at the helm of a $300 million empire. Forbes had featured her. She had spoken at conferences. Her face was on magazine covers with headlines about single mothers and entrepreneurial success and the power of starting over. She had done the impossible. She had done it alone, and she had raised 3 of the most remarkable children in the world while doing it. King, at 5 years old, was already showing signs of the brilliant mind he had inherited from somewhere. He built structures with blocks that demonstrated actual architectural principles. He asked questions that most adults could not answer. He observed everything with those serious eyes that sometimes reminded Emily painfully of someone else. Kira was her opposite. Loud where he was quiet, dramatic where he was analytical. Absolutely convinced that she was the main character in every story. She loved horses and anything purple, and had recently declared her intention to become a princess astronaut, which she explained was someone who explored space while wearing a tiara. And Kyla, the youngest by only minutes but somehow the wisest, moved through the world with an empathy that seemed impossible for someone so small. She noticed when Emily was tired before Emily admitted it. She drew pictures to make her siblings feel better when they were upset. She told stories that had no endings because, she explained, stories should keep going forever. They were everything. They knew about their father, in the vague way that children know about things they do not fully understand. Emily had answered their questions honestly, if not completely. Your father lives far away. He does not know about you. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that are hard to explain to children. I love you enough for 2 parents, maybe even 3. They accepted this because children accept what they know when they know nothing different. Emily was their world. Grace, their aunt who came over every weekend, was their world. Denver and their small house and their preschool and their elaborate games about purple dragons and architectural achievements were their world. Daniel Watson was an abstract concept, a missing piece they did not know to look for, until the invitation arrived. It came to Emily's office, addressed to the CEO of Luminance Cosmetics. Formal, elegant, the kind of invitation that announced its own importance before you even opened it. The Watson Enterprises annual Christmas Gala, the most exclusive event of the New York social season, a gathering of everyone who mattered in the world Emily had once inhabited. Her first instinct was to throw it away. Her second instinct, following immediately after, was that throwing it away would mean Daniel still had power over her, that she was still hiding, still running, still letting the man who had discarded her dictate the boundaries of her life. Emily, her business partner James, said when he found her staring at the invitation, "You know Watson Enterprises is launching a cosmetics division next year." They are a potential competitor. We should be there to assess. It is not about business, Emily replied. It is personal. I know. But it could be about business. And if you happen to enjoy watching that man realize what he lost while you were there, well, that is just a bonus. Emily looked at the invitation again. The gold embossing, the formal language, the date that was now only 2 weeks away. She had built a life that proved she never needed Daniel Watson. The only way to finish proving it was to walk into his world and show him exactly what he had thrown away. I need to find something to wear, she said finally. Something spectacular. James smiled. Now we are talking. The emerald gown was a collaboration with one of Luminance's fashion partners. Custom designed. Fitted to her body like armor made of silk. The color brought out her eyes and complemented her dark hair and made a statement without saying a word. Emily stood in front of the mirror in her hotel suite, examining her reflection with critical attention. The woman looking back at her bore little resemblance to the crying, broken thing that had signed divorce papers 3 years ago. This woman was powerful, polished, complete. You look incredible, Grace said from the doorway. She was dressed more casually, preparing for an evening of wrangling triplets in the hotel across from the Gala venue. He is going to swallow his tongue. That is not why I am doing this, Emily replied automatically. Sure it is not. Grace crossed the room and adjusted a strand of Emily's hair. And that is okay. You are allowed to want him to see what he lost. Just do not let him see that you want it. Make him work for every crumb of your attention. I do not plan on giving him any attention at all. I am going to circulate, make business connections, demonstrate that Luminance belongs at these events. Then I'm coming back here and eating pizza with my children. Speaking of your children, Grace glanced toward the suite's living room where the sounds of barely contained chaos were emanating. They are already asking how long you are going to be. King is suspicious about the whole thing. Kyra wants to know if there will be princesses at the party, and Kyla drew you a picture of a dragon for protection. Emily's heart squeezed. I will be back in 2 hours. 3 at most. I have got them. Go conquer the world, or at least remind one particular corner of it what it gave up. The Grand Meridian Hotel looked exactly as Emily remembered. She had been here before, of course. During her marriage, she had attended dozens of events in this ballroom. She knew the layout, the lighting, the way the crystal chandeliers caught and fractured light into rainbows that danced across the marble floors. She knew where the bar was positioned and how the orchestra would be arranged and which corners were best for quiet conversations. She knew this world. She had lived in it. She had been discarded from it. And now she was walking back in on her own terms. The car pulled up to the red carpet entrance, where photographers waited to capture the arrivals of New York's elite. Emily took a breath, checked her reflection one last time, and opened the door. The camera flashes started immediately, automatic responses to anyone emerging from an expensive car and expensive clothing. But there was hesitation too. She could see it in the photographers' faces. They did not recognize her. She was clearly someone, but they were not sure who. Good. Let them wonder. Let them find out on their own. Emily walked the carpet with her head high, answered a few shouted questions with polite non-answers, and made her way through the gold-framed doors into the ballroom. Inside, Christmas had exploded in the most tasteful way possible. A 25-foot tree dominated one corner, dripping with ornaments that probably cost more than some cars. Garlands of evergreen and white lights draped from every surface. The orchestra played holiday classics with understated elegance. Waiters in crisp white jackets circulated with champagne and appetizers that looked almost too beautiful to eat. And everywhere, the elite of New York. Politicians and philanthropists, celebrities and business leaders. Old money and money so old it had forgotten it was ever new. Emily took a champagne flute from a passing waiter, not because she planned to drink it, but because holding something gave her hands purpose. She began to circulate, falling into the rhythms of networking that she had learned in her previous life and refined in her current one. The first hour passed smoothly. She reconnected with a few former colleagues who seemed genuinely pleased to see her success. She met potential buyers and partners and investors who had heard of Luminance and wanted to know more. She positioned herself carefully, visible but not conspicuous, commanding attention without demanding it. She knew Daniel was somewhere in the room. She could feel him the way you feel a storm approaching. Electricity building in the air. But she did not seek him out. She did not scan the crowd for his face. She simply existed in his world, on her own terms, waiting for the moment that felt increasingly inevitable. It came at approximately 9:45. Emily was mid-conversation with a cosmetics retailer from Boston when she felt the shift in the atmosphere. A subtle change in the attention of the room. People glancing toward her, and then away. Whispers beginning to travel through the crowd like ripples from a stone dropped in still water. She knew before she turned around that he was coming. "Miss Coleman," David Monroe said, appearing at her elbow. Daniel Watson's assistant looked significantly more nervous than she remembered. He was a thin man with glasses and a perpetual expression of mild stress. "Mr. Watson was not aware you would be attending this evening." Emily smiled pleasantly at the retailer, excused herself from the conversation, and turned to face David. The invitation was addressed to the CEO of Luminance Cosmetics. "Last I checked, that is me. Unless there has been some change I am not aware of." "No, of course not. Your company's reputation is excellent. You have built something remarkable. I just meant that given your history with Mr. Watson, your presence might be somewhat unexpected." "My history with Mr. Watson," Emily replied coolly, "is exactly that. History. I am here representing my company, nothing more." David looked like he wanted to say something else, but thought better of it. He nodded once and disappeared into the crowd, presumably to warn his employer that his discarded ex-wife was on the premises. Emily returned to circulating, but her attention had sharpened. The comfortable anonymity of the first hour was over. Word was spreading. People were looking at her differently now, with curiosity and speculation, and the barely concealed excitement of witnesses to potential drama. Let them look. She had nothing to hide. 20 minutes later, she felt him before she saw him. "Well, well." Daniel Watson's voice came from behind her, smooth and confident, and carrying that familiar note of condescension that had once made her feel special before she understood what it really meant. "The prodigal wife returns." Emily turned slowly, deliberately, giving herself time to arrange her expression into polite neutrality. The man standing before her had changed, and had not changed in equal measure. Still handsome in that practiced, magazine cover way. Still tall and commanding. His dark hair showed silver at the temples now, giving him a distinguished air he certainly had not earned. His midnight blue suit was impeccable. His smile did not reach his eyes. "Ex-wife," Emily corrected. "The paperwork was quite thorough. Your lawyers made sure of that." Daniel stepped closer, champagne in hand, surveying her with an appraising look that made her skin crawl. "You look different. Success agrees with you, apparently. Though I have to admit, I am surprised you came alone. Could you not find anyone willing to play the part of supportive +1 for the evening?" The jab landed exactly where he intended. She could see it in his eyes, the satisfaction of drawing first blood. But Emily had spent 3 years building armor that his petty barbs could not penetrate. She met his gaze without flinching. "I do not need anyone to play anything, Daniel. Unlike some people, I have learned that being alone is very different from being lonely. But thank you for your concern." Daniel laughed, and the sound carried to the nearby guests, who had conveniently paused their own conversations to witness whatever was unfolding between Daniel Watson and his mysterious ex-wife. "Oh, Emily, still pretending you are fine. Still putting on that brave face." His tone dripped with manufactured sympathy. "Some things never change. Remember how you used to insist everything was perfect even when we both knew you were falling apart." The murmurs around them grew louder. This was the kind of scene that fed gossip columns for weeks. Emily felt her composure cracking just slightly around the edges. "What I remember," she said, her voice rising despite her best efforts to stay calm, "is being married to a man who measured my worth by what I could give him. And when I could not give him the one thing he wanted most." "Do not." Daniel's expression hardened, the mask of charm slipping to reveal something uglier beneath. "Do not rewrite history to make yourself the victim. You knew what I needed from our marriage. You knew from the beginning that I wanted heirs, a family, a legacy. And when you could not deliver—" "When I could not deliver," Emily interrupted, her voice carrying now, drawing the attention of everyone within 20 feet. "You filed for divorce before the doctor's words had even stopped echoing in my head. You did not wait. You did not suggest alternatives. You just decided I was defective merchandise and moved on." The ballroom had gone quiet around them. Emily was distantly aware of hundreds of eyes watching this private pain become public spectacle, but she could not stop now. 3 years of swallowed words were fighting their way to the surface. "And look at you now," Daniel continued, seemingly oblivious to the audience or perhaps enjoying it. 3 years later, still alone, still building your little makeup empire as if business success could substitute for Mommy. The voice cut through the confrontation like a blade through silk. Emily's heart stopped. Every muscle in her body went rigid as three small figures burst through the crowd near the ballroom entrance, dodging between startled guests with the single-minded determination that only children possess. Mommy, mommy, mommy. They were a blur of Christmas red and green, dark curls and bright eyes and tiny formal wear that someone had clearly wrestled them into with significant effort. Kyra reached her first, launching herself at Emily's legs with the force of a small hurricane. Kyla was seconds behind, grabbing Emily's hand and tugging urgently. And King, her serious boy, approached more slowly, his eyes scanning the room and landing on Daniel with undisguised suspicion. I am sorry, I am so sorry. Grace's breathless voice came from behind them, her face flushed with exertion and apology as she pushed through the crowd. They saw you through the lobby windows. I could not stop them. They just took off running before I could grab them. Emily crouched down, gathering all three children into her arms without caring about her gown or the watching crowd or the absolute silence that had fallen over the ballroom. It is okay, babies. I am right here. You were taking too long, Kira explained, her bottom lip trembling. You said it would just be 1 hour, and it has been forever. We missed you, Kyla added, pressing closer. King said nothing, but his arms tightened around Emily's neck in a way that communicated everything. Now, before we continue with this moment that is about to reshape everything, I need to pause and speak directly to you. If you have ever been told you were not enough, if someone made you feel like your worth depended on what you could give them rather than who you are, if you have ever had to rebuild yourself from the rubble of someone else's cruelty, then this story is for you. Because what happens next in that ballroom is going to test everything we think we know about karma, about consequence, about whether the people who hurt us ever truly understand what they have done. If you are feeling this story, if your heart is pounding the way mine is just telling it, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button right now. Not for me, but for everyone who needs to find this story. Share it with someone who has been thrown away by someone who did not see their worth. Subscribe to Mr. Dawson Stories if you have not already, because trust me, what happens next is going to stay with you for a long time. Now, back to that ballroom, where three small children have just revealed the biggest secret Emily Coleman ever kept. The silence stretched across the ballroom like a held breath. Daniel Watson stood frozen, his champagne forgotten in his hand, his eyes moving between Emily and the three children clinging to her like she was the center of their universe. Which, of course, she was. Emily watched the recognition hit him, watched his gaze travel from King's serious face to Kyra's defiant expression to Kyla's observant eyes. Watched him do the math that should have taken seconds but stretched into an eternity. They are 5 years old, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Yes, we have been divorced for 3 years. Yes, which means you were pregnant when The champagne glass slipped from Daniel's fingers. Crystal shattered against marble. The sound broke something in the room, shattered the spell of frozen silence, and suddenly the whispers began. Urgent, shocked, traveling through the crowd like wildfire. When you served me with divorce papers, because I could not give you children, Emily finished for him. She stood, lifting Kira onto her hip while keeping one hand firmly clasped in Kyla's grip. King moved to stand beside her, his small hand reaching for hers with the unshakable trust of a child who knows his mother will never let him fall. Yes, Daniel, I was 6 weeks pregnant with triplets when you threw me away. I did not know yet. Neither of us did. But you did not wait to find out, did you? You just decided I was defective merchandise and moved on. Daniel made a sound that was not quite a word. His face had gone pale, the confident mask completely shattered, leaving behind something raw and devastated. Kyra looked up at Emily with 5-year-old bluntness. Mommy, why is that man staring at us? Is he weird? A nervous laugh rippled through the watching crowd. Emily almost smiled despite everything. King, however, was not laughing. His eyes moved between Daniel and his own reflection in a nearby mirror, putting pieces together with that analytical mind that sometimes frightened Emily with its sharpness. Mommy, he said slowly, is he our father? You said, our father lives far away and does not know about us. The question hung in the air. 500 people holding their breath. Daniel looking like he might collapse at any moment. Emily made a choice. Yes, sweetheart, he is your father. Daniel's knees buckled. He did not sit so much as fold. crumpling onto the marble floor until he was at eye level with the 3 children who carried his blood in his features and absolutely none of his cruelty. Kyla tilted her head, studying him with her empathetic gaze. He looks sad, she observed. Like when Rufus got sick and we thought we might lose him. Even now, Emily thought. Even in this moment of upheaval, her daughter saw humanity where Emily saw only the man who had destroyed her. Are you going to cry? Kyra asked Daniel with the brutal honesty of childhood. Your eyes are all shiny. Daniel laughed. Or maybe sobbed. It was difficult to tell. No, maybe. I do not know. King stepped forward, positioning himself between Daniel and his sisters. The protective gesture was unmistakable. Why did you not know about us? Where were you? That is complicated, Daniel began. Adults always say things are complicated when they do not want to explain, King interrupted. I am 5, not stupid. Despite everything, Emily felt a surge of pride. Her son was not going to be steamrolled by anyone, not even his billionaire father. You are absolutely right, Daniel said, and there was genuine respect in his voice. You deserve a real answer. The truth is, your mom and I were married, and we got divorced before she knew she was pregnant. I was not a good husband. I hurt her very badly. And because of that, she decided it was safer for all of you if I was not part of your lives. It was a more honest answer than Emily had expected. She watched Daniel carefully, looking for manipulation, for performance, for the calculated charm she remembered. But all she saw was a man who looked like his entire understanding of reality had just been demolished. Are you going to try to take us away from Mommy? Kyla asked, and there was fear in her voice now. Real fear. I heard a story at school about a dad who tried to take kids away from their mom. No. Daniel's answer was immediate and fierce. Never. Your mother has been everything to you for 5 years. She built you a life, a home, a family, all on her own. I would never try to take you from her. I do not have that right. Then what do you want? King pressed. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. The ballroom remained frozen around them, witnesses to a drama that would be discussed in social circles for years to come. I want the chance to know you, Daniel finally said. If your mother allows it, if you are willing. Not to be your father right away. I have not earned that. But maybe to be someone who shows up, who pays attention, who proves that people can change when they realize how badly they messed up. Kyra considered this with the seriousness of someone weighing a significant decision. We will think about it, she declared. Then she looked up at Emily. Mommy, I am hungry. Can we go get pizza now? The absurdity of the request broke something in the tension. Emily felt a laugh building in her chest, inappropriate but unstoppable. In a minute, baby. The grown-ups need to finish talking. But I am hungry now. Kyra. The single word carried enough maternal authority to make Kyra subside, though her expression promised this was not over. Emily turned back to Daniel, who had managed to get to his feet but still looked like he might shatter at any moment. This is not a conversation for a ballroom, she said quietly. And it is not a conversation for tonight. My children are tired. They have had enough excitement. We are leaving. Emily, wait. Please. She paused but did not turn around. I am sorry, Daniel said, and his voice cracked on the words. I am so sorry. For all of it. For making you feel like you were not enough when you were always more than I deserved. For choosing my timeline over our future. For every moment of pain I caused you. Emily closed her eyes briefly, letting the words wash over her. They did not heal anything. Words never could. But they were something. A start, maybe. A crack in the door she had sealed shut 3 years ago. Actions, Daniel, she said without turning around. Actions, not words. You want to know your children. Prove you deserve to. I will, whatever it takes. However long it takes. Emily nodded once, then walked through the crowd with her children around her. People parted for her like she was royalty. Maybe, in this moment, she was. Grace met her at the door, eyes wide with shock and questions. Emily shook her head slightly. Not now. Not here. They made it to the lobby before Kyra spoke again. So, that was our dad. Yes, baby. He seems sad. He is sad, King agreed. He lost us for 5 years. That is a lot of losing. But he said he wants to try, Kyla offered. Miss Patterson says everyone deserves a chance to try. Emily looked at her children, at their open faces and their willingness to consider possibilities she had closed herself off to years ago. They did not carry her anger. They did not have her scars. They saw a sad man who wanted to do better, not a monster who had destroyed their mother. Maybe that was healthy. Maybe that was what children were supposed to do. Or maybe it was going to break her heart all over again. "Mommy," King said as they walked toward the car. "Are you okay?" Emily crouched down to his level, looking into eyes that were so much like Daniel's it sometimes stole her breath. "I am okay, baby. Tonight was just a lot of feelings. But I am okay. You looked scared when we came running in." "We are sorry we scared you. You did not scare me." Emily pulled him close, then reached out to gather Kira and Kyla into the embrace as well. "You could never scare me. You three, the best thing that ever happened to me. No matter what happens with your father, that will never change. Promise. I promise." They piled into the car, the triplets immediately launching into a debriefing of everything they had observed in the ballroom. The tall man, who looked like he might fall over, the pretty dresses, the really big Christmas tree, the way everyone got really quiet all at once. Grace strove while Emily sat in the back with her children, half listening to their chatter, while her mind replayed the evening on an endless loop. Daniel's cruelty, Daniel's recognition, Daniel's collapse, the promises he had made while kneeling on a marble floor in front of everyone who mattered. Actions, not words. She had meant it. She would hold him to it. But underneath her resolve, buried so deep she barely admitted it to herself, was something small and fragile, something that might have been hope. She crushed it ruthlessly. Hope had failed her before. She was not fool enough to let it fail her again. Back at the hotel, while Grace ordered room service pizza and supervised the triplets changing out of their fancy clothes, Emily stood in the bathroom and finally let herself fall apart. The tears came silently, years of suppressed emotion finding release in the privacy of a locked door. She cried for the woman she had been, young and in love and so certain of her fairy tale. She cried for the devastation of her divorce, the loneliness of her pregnancy, the terror of raising 3 children alone. She cried for the moment in the ballroom when Daniel had looked at his children for the first time and something in his face had suggested he actually understood what he had lost. And she cried because part of her, the part she hated most, had felt something when he fell to his knees. Something other than satisfaction or vindication or righteous anger. Something that felt dangerously like recognition of the man she had once loved underneath the monster he had become. She could not afford that. She would not afford it. Emily washed her face, fixed her makeup, and walked back out to eat pizza with her children like nothing in the world was wrong. That night, after the triplets were finally asleep in the hotel room they were sharing, Emily sat by the window and stared out at the New York skyline. Somewhere in this city, Daniel Watson was probably doing the same thing. Processing, planning, figuring out his next move. She needed to be ready. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She hesitated before opening it. "I know I do not deserve anything, but I meant every word. Tell me what you need from me, and I will do it. Whatever it takes. However long it takes. Daniel." Emily stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back 2 words. Actions, not words, and turned off her phone. The next morning arrived with the kind of harsh winter sunlight that made everything feel too real, too exposed, too impossible to hide from. Emily woke to the sound of her children arguing about something in the next room. A familiar sound, a grounding sound. She lay in bed for an extra moment, letting the reality of last night settle over her like a weight she would have to learn to carry. It had actually happened. Daniel knew. The world knew. The secret she had guarded for 5 years was no longer hers to protect. Her phone showed 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. She scrolled through them without reading. Business contacts wanting confirmation, old acquaintances wanting gossip, Grace checking on her, and Daniel. 3 more messages from Daniel, each one shorter than the last. "Please let me explain. I want to make this right. Tell me what to do." Emily deleted none of them. She answered none of them. She simply got out of bed and went to referee whatever dispute was currently unfolding between her children. King had apparently taken Kyra's purple crayon without asking, which Kyra considered a crime punishable by eternal banishment from the kingdom she was constructing on the hotel room floor. Kyla was attempting to mediate with the patience of a tiny diplomat who had seen too many of these conflicts to be surprised by anything. He said he needed it for the castle walls, Kyla explained when Emily appeared in the doorway. But Kyra says purple is her special color and nobody else can use it. Purple is everyone's color, King countered. It is just a color. It does not belong to anyone. It belongs to me, Kyra insisted. I decided. Emily rubbed her temples. It was not even 8 in the morning. Good morning to you too, she said. How about we save the crayon wars for after breakfast? Grace emerged from the bathroom, already dressed, her expression carrying the careful neutrality of someone who had a lot of questions but knew better than to ask them in front of the children. I was thinking room service, Grace said. Give everyone a chance to settle before we head to the airport. That sounds perfect. They ordered pancakes and eggs and fruit that the triplets picked at, with varying levels of enthusiasm. The children seemed remarkably unbothered by the events of the previous evening, already incorporating their father into their understanding of the world with the flexibility that only children possess. When will we see him again? King asked between bites of pancake. The man from last night. Our father. Emily set down her coffee cup carefully. I do not know yet, baby. We need to figure some things out first. What kind of things? Grown-up things. Logistics and schedules and making sure everyone is safe and comfortable. Is he dangerous? Kyla asked, her eyes wide with concern. No, baby. He is not dangerous. He is just someone we do not know very well yet. And when you do not know someone, you have to be careful about how you let them into your life. But he is our dad, Kyra said. Does that not mean he is automatically in our life? Emily searched for words that would be honest without being harmful. Being related to someone does not automatically mean they get to be close to you. Closeness is something that has to be earned. Does that make sense? The triplets exchanged glances, conducting one of their silent conferences that always made Emily feel like she was the one being evaluated. I think so, King said finally. Like how Mrs. Patterson says trust is something you build, not something you just have. Exactly like that. So he has to build trust with us. Yes. How does he do that? By showing up when he says he will, by keeping his promises, by being patient even when it is hard, by putting our feelings before his own. That is a lot of things, Kara observed. What if he messes up? Everyone messes up sometimes. What matters is what you do after, whether you learn and try again, or whether you give up. Kyla nodded slowly, processing this with her characteristic thoughtfulness. Do you think he will try? Emily paused before answering. The honest answer was that she did not know. The hopeful answer was that maybe he would. The cynical answer was that Daniel Watson had never tried for anything that did not benefit him directly. I think, she said carefully, that he wants to try. Whether he can actually do it is something we will have to wait and see. The flight back to Denver felt longer than it should have. The triplets fell asleep within the first hour, exhausted from the excitement and the emotional weight they had absorbed without fully understanding. Emily sat between them, Kira's head on her shoulder, King's hand loosely holding hers, Kyla curled against the window with her stuffed dragon clutched to her chest. Grace sat across the aisle, her expression making clear that the conversation they needed to have was coming whether Emily wanted it or not. So, Grace said quietly, that happened. That happened. Are you okay? Emily considered the question. She did not feel okay. She felt exposed and raw and terrified of what came next. But she also felt something else, something harder to name. Relief, maybe. The exhausting weight of the secret finally lifted. I will be, she said. I always am. What are you going to do? I have no idea. Figure it out as I go, I suppose. That is what I have been doing for 5 years. He looked destroyed, Grace observed. When he saw them, I have never seen anyone's face do what his face did. Good. Is it good? Emily turned to look at her sister. He threw me away, Grace. He told me I was worthless because my body was not performing on his schedule. He did not wait. He did not try alternatives. He just decided I was defective and moved on. So yes, seeing him realize what he lost, seeing him understand exactly what his cruelty cost him, that is good. That is justice. And the kids. The kids are a separate issue. Whatever I feel about Daniel, they deserve to know their father if he can prove himself worthy of them. I will not let my anger poison their chance at having a relationship with him. That is very mature of you. I am a mother. Maturity is part of the job description. Grace was quiet for a moment, watching Emily with the knowing eyes of someone who had witnessed every stage of her devastation and rebuilding. You know he is going to show up in Denver, Grace said. He is not going to just wait by his phone hoping you will call. I know. Are you ready for that? Emily looked at her sleeping children, at the faces that combined her features with Daniel's in ways that sometimes took her breath away. "I do not have a choice," she said. "Ready or not, this is happening. The only thing I can control is how I respond to it." They landed in Denver to winter sunshine and the familiar comfort of home. The triplets woke as the plane touched down, immediately resuming their conversation about purple crayons as if they had never stopped. Home felt different when they arrived. The same house, the same furniture, the same carefully constructed life that Emily had built from nothing. But something had shifted. The secret that had lived in the walls, in the silences, in the careful way she had constructed their world, was gone now. Out in the open, no longer hers to protect. The triplets ran to their rooms to reunite with toys and books and the familiar chaos of their kingdom. Emily stood in the kitchen, looking at the life she had made, wondering how much of it would survive what was coming. Her phone buzzed again. "I know you need time. I will wait. But please, when you are ready, let me prove I can be better." She did not respond. 3 days later, Daniel Watson arrived in Denver. Emily had expected this, had prepared for it as much as anyone could prepare for the earthquake that was about to reshape her carefully constructed world. But expecting something and experiencing it were very different things. He texted first, which she appreciated, a small gesture of respect that the old Daniel would never have considered. "I am in Denver. I am not here to pressure you. I just wanted you to know I meant what I said. I will wait as long as you need, but I am here. When you are ready." Emily read the message 3 times before responding. "There is a coffee shop on Maple Street. The Bean Counter. Tomorrow at 10. Come alone. I will be there." She almost changed her mind a dozen times that night. Almost texted him to cancel, to postpone, to demand that he return to New York and leave her alone. But running was not an option anymore. The secret was out. The children knew their father existed and that he wanted to know them. Moving forward was the only direction available. Grace agreed to watch the triplets. Emily put on armor made of professional clothing and careful makeup, the costume of a woman who was in control even when she felt anything but. The Bean Counter was a small, comfortable coffee shop that Emily had chosen specifically because it was public enough to feel safe and quiet enough to have a real conversation. She arrived 15 minutes early and claimed a corner table with a clear view of the door. Daniel walked in at exactly 10 o'clock. He looked different than he had at the gala. Less polished, less performed. He wore jeans and a casual sweater, clothes she had rarely seen him in during their marriage. His face carried the evidence of sleepless nights, shadows under his eyes that even expensive skincare could not hide. He spotted her immediately and walked over with none of his usual confident stride. He moved like a man approaching something he was terrified of breaking. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. "I was not sure you would. I almost did not. I would have understood." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on them. A waitress came and took their orders. Coffee for both of them, black, though Emily could not imagine actually drinking hers. "I do not know where to start," Daniel admitted when they were alone again. "I have been trying to figure out what to say for 3 days, and everything sounds inadequate." "Then do not say anything. Listen." Daniel nodded slowly. "Okay, I can do that." Emily took a breath, organizing the thoughts she had been arranging and rearranging since the gala. "I am not here to give you absolution," she began. "I am not here to tell you that everything is forgiven or that we can start fresh like nothing happened. What you did to me, Daniel, the way you made me feel, I do not know if I will ever fully recover from that." "I know." "Do you? Because when you said those words to me, when you called me defective and filed for divorce like I was a business deal that had not worked out, you broke something in me that I am still trying to repair. You made me believe I was worthless. You made me question my own value as a human being. Do you understand what that does to a person?" Daniel's face had gone pale, but he did not look away. "I am starting to understand. And Emily, I am so—" I said, "Listen." He closed his mouth. "I rebuilt my life from nothing." Emily's voice was steady, controlled, carrying the weight of 3 years of suppressed words. "I raised 3 children alone while building a company from my kitchen table. I did that without your help, without your support, without your knowledge. I proved that I was not worthless, that I was capable of extraordinary things, that everything you thought about me was wrong. You did. But here is what I need you to understand. I did not do that for you. I did not do it to prove anything to you, or to make you regret what you did. I did it because I had 3 children who needed a mother who was strong, who was capable, who could give them a life full of love and opportunity. They are why I rebuilt. They are why I survived." Emily paused, watching Daniel absorb her words. His eyes were wet, but he was holding back tears with visible effort. "Now, those children know you exist," Emily continued. "They know their father is alive and wants to be part of their lives. I cannot undo that knowledge. I would not want to, because they deserve to know where they come from. But Daniel, I need you to understand something very clearly. Anything. If you are doing this for your ego, if this is about your legacy or your image or winning some kind of competition with me, walk away now. Those children are not pawns. They are not extensions of the Watson brand. They are human beings with feelings and needs, and the absolute right to be treated with respect and consistency. I know that. Do you? Because the man I married, the man who threw me away, he did not understand that about anyone. He treated people as means to ends. He measured value in utility. If you are still that man, I need to know now before you get anywhere near my children." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "I want to tell you I am not that man anymore. I want to say that everything changed the moment I saw them, that I immediately became the father they deserve. But that would be a lie, and I promised myself I would not lie to you again. Then tell me the truth. The truth is that I do not know who I am right now. 3 days ago, I was a successful businessman with a comfortable life and no real obligations to anyone but myself. And then I looked across that ballroom and saw my own eyes looking back at me from 3 small faces, and everything I thought I knew about myself collapsed." Daniel leaned forward, his hands wrapped around his untouched coffee cup. "I have spent 3 days asking myself why I did what I did to you, why I was so quick to file for divorce, why I could not be patient or understanding or kind, and the answers I am finding are not flattering. Go on." I was terrified. The pressure from my family, the expectations, the constant message that my only value was in producing the next generation of Watsons. When you did not get pregnant immediately, when the doctors could not find an easy answer, I panicked. I did what I always do when I am scared. I found someone else to blame. Emily felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but recognition maybe, the outline of something that looked almost like understanding. "That does not excuse what you did," she said. "No, it does not. There is no excuse for how I treated you. I was cruel and cowardly, and I destroyed something precious because I was too afraid to look at my own inadequacies. You deserved a partner who would support you, who would be patient, who would love you regardless of whether you could give him children. And instead, you got me." Daniel's voice broke on the last word. He looked down at the table, visibly struggling for control. "I spent 3 years telling myself I made the right decision, that we were not compatible, that you would be happier without me. But watching you walk into that ballroom, seeing what you have become, what you have built, I knew I had been lying to myself the entire time. You were never the problem. I was." "Pretty words," Emily said quietly. "I have heard your pretty words before. I know, and I know they do not mean anything yet. That is why I am here, not to convince you with words, but to ask you what actions would matter. What would prove to you that I am serious about being different?" Emily considered the question. She had thought about this constantly since the gala, trying to imagine what evidence would be sufficient to let Daniel into her children's lives. "Supervised visits," she said finally. "Structured, boundaried, with me or Grace present at all times. Short at first, an hour or 2. Public places where the children feel comfortable. Done. No gifts. Not at first. I do not want them associating you with material things. Your presence should be the gift, not what you can buy them. Understood. You show up when you say you will. Every single time. No cancellations because of work. No rescheduling because something came up. If you commit to being somewhere, you are there. I will be. And Daniel," Emily leaned forward, holding his gaze with an intensity that made him flinch. "If you let them down, if you promise them something and fail to deliver, if you make them love you and then disappear, there will not be another chance. I will use every resource I have to keep you away from them. Do you understand?" "I understand." Emily sat back, trying to read his face the way she had once been able to read it, trying to see past the performance to the truth beneath. "Why do you want this?" she asked. "Really? Not the answer you think I want to hear? The real reason." Daniel was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. Because I am 40 years old, he said finally, and I have accomplished everything I was supposed to accomplish. I have the company, the money, the success. I have everything my father and grandfather told me I needed, and it means nothing. I go home to an empty apartment. I attend parties where everyone wants something from me. I have not had a real conversation with another human being in months, maybe years. He looked up at Emily with eyes that held none of the confidence she remembered. When I saw those children, when Kyra asked me if I was going to cry, and King looked at me like he was protecting his sisters from a threat, something happened. I felt something I have not felt in so long I barely recognized it. I felt like maybe there was a reason to be better, like maybe there was something worth working for that was not about money, or power, or legacy. "And what about me?" Emily asked. "What do you feel when you look at me?" Daniel's face shifted, something raw and unguarded flickering across his features before he could control it. "Regret," he said. "Shame. The understanding that I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me because I was too stupid and scared to see it. And underneath all of that," he paused, struggling for words, "something I do not have the right to feel anymore. Which is, I still see the woman I fell in love with. Stronger now. Harder in ways I caused. But still her. Still you." Emily felt her heart rate increase and forced herself to breathe evenly. "That is not something we are discussing. I know. I am just answering your question honestly. You said you wanted the truth. The truth is that you hurt me more than anyone has ever hurt me. The truth is that I built walls around my heart specifically to keep people like you out. The truth is that even if you prove yourself to the children, I do not know if I will ever trust you with anything beyond co-parenting. I understand. Do you? Because I need you to hear this clearly. You and I are not a possibility. What we are doing here is figuring out whether you can have a relationship with your children. That is it. Nothing more." Daniel nodded, his expression carrying something that looked like acceptance mixed with grief. "I hear you, and I respect that. Whatever you need this to be, that is what it will be." They sat in silence for a moment, the parameters of their new reality settling around them. "I will call you tomorrow," Emily said, standing. "We can discuss the first visit." "Thank you. Do not thank me yet. Thank me when you have actually proven yourself." "I will." Emily walked out of the coffee shop without looking back. Her hands were shaking, her heart was pounding, and somewhere deep inside her, something that might have been hope was trying to take root. She crushed it ruthlessly. She had been disappointed by Daniel Watson before. She would not make that mistake again. The first visit happened 1 week later. They met at a park near Emily's house, a place the triplets knew well and felt comfortable in. Daniel arrived 15 minutes early and sat on a bench, waiting with a stillness that suggested he was terrified of making a wrong move. Emily watched him from across the park, the triplets holding back near her legs with unusual hesitation. They were excited and nervous in equal measure, their usual boundless energy temporarily subdued by the weight of what was happening. "Is that him?" King asked, though he clearly already knew the answer. "That is him. He looks different than at the party," Kyla observed. "Less fancy. He wanted to look more comfortable for you," Emily explained. "Less scary." "I am not scared," Kira announced, though her hand tightened on Emily's. "It is okay if you are nervous," Emily said, crouching down to their level. "This is a big thing, meeting your father for real after only knowing about him for a week. Anyone would be nervous." "Are you nervous?" King asked. "A little. Why? Because I want this to go well for you. I want you to have good experiences with him, and I cannot control what happens, only how we respond to it." The triplets exchanged glances, conducting another of their silent conferences. "Okay," Kyra said finally. "We are ready." They walked across the park together, Emily's heart hammering in her chest. Daniel stood as they approached, his face a careful mask that failed to hide the emotion underneath. "Hi," he said, crouching down to the children's level. "Thank you for meeting me." "Mommy said we had to," Kara replied with characteristic bluntness. "But she also said it might be nice. I hope it will be nice. I brought something, but your mom said no gifts, so I was not sure." Daniel looked at Emily uncertainly. "It is not really a gift. It is more like something to do together." He pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket and spread it open on the ground. It was a scavenger hunt, Emily realized. A simple list of things to find in the park. A red leaf, a round rock, something that makes a noise. "I thought we could do this together," Daniel explained. "If you want to." I like scavenger hunts, Kyla said, studying the list with interest. Me too, Kyra agreed. King remained quiet, his eyes moving between the paper and Daniel's face, assessing. Did you make this yourself? King asked. I did. Last night. I was not sure what you like to do, so I thought something with a list might be good. Lists are organized. They make sense. Something flickered in King's expression. Recognition, maybe. The understanding that this man's brain worked in similar ways to his own. Okay, King said finally, but I get to hold the list. Deal. The next hour passed with surprising ease. The children threw themselves into the scavenger hunt with characteristic enthusiasm, dragging Daniel around the park in search of items while Emily watched from a careful distance. She had expected awkwardness, stilted conversation, the uncomfortable silences that come when strangers try to pretend familiarity. But Daniel was different with the children than she had anticipated. He did not talk down to them or over them. He asked questions and actually listened to the answers. He got down on his hands and knees to examine the bug Kyla had found. He discussed the architectural merits of a stick fort some other child had built with King. He let Kyra hold his hand without making a big deal of it. By the time the scavenger hunt was complete, something had shifted. The triplets were talking to Daniel with less hesitation, including him in their running commentary about the world and the way they included people they were beginning to trust. That was fun, Kira declared as they reconvened near Emily's bench. Can we do it again next time? If your mom says there is a next time, Daniel replied, looking at Emily with carefully contained hope. Emily studied her children's faces, looking for signs of distress or discomfort. She found none. Only the flushed excitement of kids who had been running around a park and the tentative openness of children meeting someone they wanted to like. We will see, she said. But I think this went well. Daniel's face transformed, hope and gratitude mixing in his expression. Thank you for giving me this chance. Do not thank me yet. This was 1 hour. There are years of hours ahead. I know, and I will show up for every single one. Before we continue with the months that followed this first meeting, I need to pause and speak directly to you. This is the part of the story where things start to change, where the man who caused so much pain begins the long, difficult work of becoming someone different. And I know what some of you might be thinking. Does he deserve this chance? After what he did to Emily, after how he treated her, does Daniel Watson deserve the opportunity to know his children? Here's what I have learned from telling these stories. Redemption is not about deserving. It is about becoming. The question is not whether Daniel deserves to be a father. The question is whether he can become the father his children need. And that is something only time can reveal. If you are invested in this journey, if you want to see whether Daniel can actually transform or whether he will let everyone down again, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications so you do not miss what happens next. And drop a comment telling me what you think. Does Daniel deserve another chance? Would you give it to him? Your engagement helps more people discover stories like this. Stories about the messy, complicated work of becoming better than our worst moments. Now back to Denver, where something unexpected was beginning to happen. The first month was structured and careful. Visits happened twice a week, always in public places, always with Emily or Grace present. Daniel never canceled. He never arrived late. He never made promises he could not keep. When King asked if they could visit the architecture exhibit at the Denver Art Museum, Daniel cleared his schedule and made it happen. When Kira mentioned wanting to learn about horses, Daniel spent 3 hours researching local stables before presenting options to Emily for approval. When Kyla showed him a story she had written, Daniel read every word and asked thoughtful questions about the characters. He was trying. Emily could see that. And more importantly, the children could see it. But trust is not built in a month. It is built in the accumulation of moments, the consistency of showing up, the reliability of being exactly who you said you would be day after day after day. The second month brought video calls. 3 times a week, Daniel would call the triplets before bedtime. At first, the conversations were stilted, the children unsure what to talk about with this person who was supposed to be their father but felt like a stranger. But Daniel was patient. He asked about their days without expecting elaborate answers. He listened to Kira's rambling stories about her imaginary horse. He discussed building materials with King. He let Kyla read him her latest stories while he sat in his hotel room thousands of miles away. Slowly, imperceptibly, the walls began to lower. It happened in small moments. Kyra calling him Dad for the first time, casually, without seeming to realize the weight of what she had said. King showing Daniel his latest architectural drawing before showing Emily. Kyla asking if she could call Daniel when she had a nightmare, not to replace Emily, but in addition to her. "He is different than I expected," Grace observed one evening as they watched Daniel help King build an elaborate structure in Emily's backyard. "I thought he would get bored, give up, retreat back to his important life in New York." "I thought so too," Emily admitted. "But he is still here. He is still here." Grace glanced at Emily sideways. "And how do you feel about that?" Emily did not answer immediately. Her feelings about Daniel had become complicated in ways she had not anticipated. The anger was still there, the hurt, the protective walls she had built to keep him out. But underneath, something was shifting. Watching him with the children, seeing the way he prioritized them above everything else, witnessing the genuine transformation that seemed to be taking root. She did not know how she felt. "Confused," she said finally. "Cautious. Still angry, but maybe less certain that anger is the only thing I should be feeling. That sounds like progress. Or it sounds like the beginning of a terrible mistake. Only one way to find out." 3 months after the gala, Daniel made an announcement that changed everything. They were having dinner at Emily's house, something that had become a weekly occurrence. The triplets were chattering about their school week, while Daniel and Emily maintained the careful distance of CO parents who were still figuring out how to share space. "I have news," Daniel said during a lull in the children's conversation. "I've been working on something for the past few weeks, and I wanted to tell you all together." The triplets looked up with interest. Emily felt her guard rise automatically. "What kind of news?" King asked. "I am moving to Denver." Silence fell over the table. The triplets' faces cycled through confusion, excitement, and uncertainty in rapid succession. "What do you mean?" Emily asked carefully. "I mean, I am relocating, opening a Denver office for Watson Enterprises, restructuring my role so I can be here more, not just for visits, actually here." "But your company is in New York," Kara said, her small face scrunched with confusion. "My company can be wherever I am. I have spent my whole life building something that was supposed to matter. But this," he looked at the triplets with an expression that made Emily's chest tighten. "This actually matters. You matter. I do not want to be a visitor in your lives. I want to be present, really present, if your mother allows it." Emily felt 3 pairs of eyes turn to her, waiting for her reaction. "That is a big decision," she said slowly. "I know, and I have thought about it carefully. I am not doing this impulsively. I have spent weeks working out the logistics, making sure the business can function with me in a different city. This is not a grand gesture that will fall apart next month. This is a real, sustainable change." "Why?" Emily asked. "Because I miss 5 years. And every day I spend in New York is another day I am missing. I cannot get back what I lost, but I can stop losing more." The triplets were practically vibrating with excitement, but they were watching Emily, taking their cues from her reaction. Emily did not know what to feel. Part of her wanted to reject this, to maintain the distance that kept her safe. But another part, the part that watched her children's faces light up when Daniel walked through the door, recognized that this might actually be the right thing. "Let me think about it," she said finally. "We can discuss it later." "Of course, whatever timeline you need." Later turned out to be that evening, after the triplets were in bed and Daniel was helping Emily clean up the kitchen. A domestic scene that felt surreal given their history. "You do not have to do this," Emily said, scrubbing a pot with more force than necessary. "Uproot your entire life. You can be a present father from New York. We have been making it work. Making it work is not the same as thriving." Daniel set down the plate he'd been drying. "I want to be at their school plays. I want to drive them to activities. I want to be the person they call when something exciting happens. I cannot do that from 2,000 miles away." "And what about your life? Your work? Everything you built in New York?" "Everything I built in New York was a substitute for actually living. I was successful, but I was empty. These past 3 months, being here, being present with them." He paused, struggling for words. "I did not know it could feel like this. I did not know I could feel like this." Emily set down the pot and turned to face him. Her guard was up, but something in his expression was making it hard to maintain. "What exactly are you saying?" she asked. "I am saying that for the first time in my life, I have something worth prioritizing, people worth making sacrifices for. I am saying that I would rather live in a small apartment in Denver and see my children every day than live in a penthouse in New York and see them twice a month." "And what about me?" Daniel's face shifted, something raw flickering in his eyes. "What about you?" he asked carefully. "You said you wanted to be present with them. What about me? What do you expect this to look like when you are living in the same city as the woman whose life you destroyed?" "I expect nothing. I hope for a lot, but I expect nothing. If you want me to keep my distance, to only be present when you are not around, I will do that. If you want to pretend we are just two people who happen to share children, I can do that too. Whatever makes you comfortable. That is not what I'm asking." "Then what are you asking?" Emily did not know. The question had formed before she understood what answer she was looking for. "I guess I am asking," she said slowly, "whether you think this can actually work. You and me in the same city, parenting children who are starting to love you, the history we have, all of it. Do you really think we can navigate that without everything falling apart?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "I think," he said finally, "that I have spent 3 months proving I can be consistent. I think I have another 50 years to keep proving it. I think you are the strongest person I have ever known, and if you decide to let me into their lives in a bigger way, you will handle whatever complications arise, because that is what you do. You handle things. You survive. You overcome." He took a careful step closer. "But I also think," he continued, "that at some point, you might decide that surviving is not enough, that you deserve more than just handling things. And when that day comes, if that day comes, I want to be someone worth considering. Not as a romantic option, I know I have no right to ask for that, but as a partner, a CEO parent, a person who makes your life easier instead of harder." Emily felt her throat tighten. She turned away, staring at the dishes in the sink because looking at him was suddenly too much. "That is a lot of pretty words," she said. "I know, and I know words do not mean anything yet. So, let me prove it. Let me move here and show up every single day and be exactly who I am promising to be. And if after a year, after 2 years, after however long it takes, you still do not trust me, then at least you will know I tried." The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything said and unsaid. "Okay," Emily finally whispered. "Okay. Move to Denver. Be present. Show me you can do this." Daniel's face transformed with hope and gratitude, and something else that Emily refused to examine too closely. "Thank you," he said. "Do not thank me yet. You still have to prove yourself. I will. Every single day." 6 weeks later, Daniel closed on a house 3 miles from Emily's. It was a craftsman-style home with a big backyard and enough bedrooms for the triplets to have their own spaces when they stayed over. Daniel had consulted with Emily on every detail, making sure she was comfortable with the proximity, the layout, the implications of having him so close. The first sleepover happened a month after he moved in. Emily packed 3 overnight bags with the obsessive attention of someone trying to control an uncontrollable situation. Pajamas and toothbrushes and stuffed animals and the specific brands of snacks each child preferred. She wrote out detailed instructions for bedtime routines, allergies, emergency contacts. "They are going 3 miles, Grace observed, watching Emily reorganize the bags for the 4th time. "Not to another country. I know that. Then why do you look like you are sending them off to war?" "Because I am trusting him with the most important things in my life. And if he fails, if something goes wrong, he is not going to fail. You do not know that, no. But I know that he has been showing up consistently for 6 months. I know those children adore him. And I know that at some point, you have to let go enough to see what happens." Emily zipped the final bag with more force than necessary. "I hate this," she admitted. "I know. But, Emily," her sister's voice softened, "this is good. This is what you wanted for them. A father who shows up, a parent who prioritizes them. Just because you are scared does not mean you are making a mistake." The triplets were ecstatic about the sleepover. They had been to Daniel's house dozens of times by now, but staying overnight was new territory. An adventure. A step into a future where their family looked different than it had before. "Call me if you need anything," Emily said as she dropped them off. "Any time. I do not care if it is 3 in the morning." "We will be fine, Mommy," Kyra said with the exasperation of a child who was very over her mother's anxiety. "I know. We love you," Kyla interrupted, wrapping her arms around Emily's waist. "And we love Daddy too. It is okay to love both of you." Emily's eyes burned with sudden tears. She crouched down and gathered all 3 of them into a hug. "I love you too," she whispered. "So much. Have fun." She watched them run into Daniel's house, already chattering about what movies they were going to watch, and felt something shift in her chest. Not pain, exactly. Something more like the bittersweet recognition that her children were growing, changing, expanding their world in ways that no longer centered entirely on her. Daniel appeared in the doorway, the triplets visible behind him, already exploring. "They are going to be fine," he said gently. "I know. Are you going to be fine?" Emily almost laughed. "I do not know. Ask me in the morning." Fair enough. They stood there for a moment, two people navigating a relationship that did not have a name, that existed somewhere between former spouses and current CEO parents and something else neither of them was willing to articulate. "Call me if anything happens," Emily said. "I will. And Daniel," she paused, struggling with words that felt too vulnerable to speak. "Thank you for being who you have been these past 6 months, for showing up, for making this easier than it had to be." Daniel's face softened with emotion. "Thank you for letting me," he said. "I know how hard it is to trust me. I know what I cost you. The fact that you are giving me this chance, it is more than I deserve." Emily did not argue with him. She simply nodded and walked back to her car, feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. The night passed without incident. Daniel sent regular updates without being asked. Photos of the triplets eating pizza. A video of them building a fort in the living room. A text reporting that everyone had brushed their teeth and was settling into bed. In the morning, Emily arrived to find 3 tired, happy children who immediately launched into stories about their adventure. The movie they watched. The pancakes Daddy made that were not as good as Mommy's, but still pretty good. The way Kyla had a nightmare, and Daddy sat with her until she fell back asleep. "He sang to me," Kyla said, her voice carrying the wonder of a child who had discovered something unexpected. A song about stars. He said his mom used to sing it to him. Emily looked at Daniel, who was watching the children with an expression she had never seen on his face during their marriage. Tender, present, completely focused on the small humans in front of him, rather than the million other things that used to seem so important. Something in her chest cracked. Not broke. Cracked. Like ice when spring comes, making room for something new to emerge. She did not know what she felt about Daniel Watson. Did not know if the walls around her heart were protection or prison. Did not know if the man standing in front of her was the same person who had destroyed her or someone new entirely. But for the first time since that night in the ballroom, she allowed herself to wonder, to consider possibilities she had sworn never to consider again. To think that maybe, possibly, the story was not over yet. The months that followed rewrote everything Emily thought she knew about second chances. 1 year after the Christmas gala, she stood in her kitchen watching Daniel help King with his latest architectural project while Kyra painted purple horses at the table and Kyla read quietly in the corner. A scene so domestic, so ordinary, that it would have been unimaginable 12 months ago. Daniel came over almost every day now, sometimes for dinner, sometimes just to help with homework or bedtime routines. He had become woven into the fabric of their daily lives in ways that felt both strange and somehow inevitable. He never pushed for more than she offered, never made assumptions about where things stood between them. He simply showed up, day after day, being exactly who he had promised to be. The triplets had stopped treating him like a guest and started treating him like a permanent fixture. Dad instead of Daniel, family instead of visitor. They fought with him the way children fight with parents, knowing instinctively that the relationship was solid enough to withstand conflict. "This wall needs more support here," Daniel was saying to King, pointing at the model building they were constructing. "See how it is leaning. What do you think would fix it?" "Maybe a bigger base," King suggested, studying the problem with intense focus. "That is one option. What else?" "We could add another support beam in the middle, like a column." "Exactly. Want to try it?" King nodded eagerly, already reaching for more materials. Emily watched Daniel guide him through the process, patient and engaged, treating her son's interest with the same seriousness he would give a professional colleague. This was who Daniel had become. Not the man who measured value and utility, not the man who discarded people when they failed to meet his timeline. Someone different, someone who understood that the most important things could not be scheduled or controlled. Emily still did not fully trust it, still waited for the crack in the facade, the moment when the old Daniel would emerge and prove that all of this had been an elaborate performance. But the moment never came. "Mommy," Kira said, holding up her painting. "Look, it is a horse family. The big one is the daddy horse, and the medium one is the mommy horse, and the 3 little ones are the baby horses." Emily looked at the painting, at the 5 horses standing together in a purple field, and felt her throat tighten. It is beautiful, baby. The daddy horse used to live far away, Kyra continued, narrating the story behind her art. But then he moved closer so he could be with his family every day. And now everyone is happy. The simplicity of it struck Emily with unexpected force. In Kyra's world, the story was that simple. The daddy came back. Everyone was happy. The end. If only adult hearts worked the same way. That evening, after the children were in bed and Daniel was gathering his things to leave, Emily found herself speaking before she had fully decided to. "Can you stay for a minute? I want to talk." Daniel set down his jacket immediately, his expression shifting to careful attention. "Of course. Is everything okay?" "Everything is fine. She paused, searching for words that felt impossibly heavy. "I need to ask you something. Anything." They sat at the kitchen table, 2 people who had once shared everything and now shared only the careful distance of CO parents still figuring out their boundaries. "Kara showed me her painting today," Emily began. "The horse family, with the daddy who moved closer so everyone could be happy." Daniel nodded slowly. "I saw it." She was very proud. "It made me realize something." Emily looked down at her hands, unable to meet his eyes. "Our children have a story about us in their heads. A story where we are a family that works, where we all end up together, where the happy ending is just a matter of time. They are children. They see the world simply. I know. But Daniel, I need to understand something. What is your story? In your head. What do you think is happening here?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. "I think I have spent a year proving that I can be a good father. I think I have been exactly who I promised to be. I think those children have accepted me in ways I never expected and certainly do not deserve. That is not what I am asking." "I know." Silence stretched between them. "Emily," Daniel said finally, "I am not going to lie to you. Not anymore. Not about anything. Then answer my question." Daniel took a breath, visibly gathering courage. "My story," he said slowly, "is that I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me 6 years ago. My story is that I spent 3 years living with the consequences of that choice and pretending I was fine. My story is that I saw my children for the first time in a ballroom full of strangers, and everything I thought I knew about myself collapsed." He paused, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "And my story is that over the past year, I have fallen in love with my children, and with the life we are building, and with the woman who made all of it possible, even though I have no right to feel that way. Even though I know I lost that privilege when I walked away." Emily felt her heart rate spike. "Daniel, I am not asking for anything," he continued quickly. "I know I destroyed your trust. I know there are wounds that may never heal. I am just telling you the truth because you asked. My story includes you. It always has. And if I am being completely honest, it always will." The words hung in the air between them, vulnerable and raw. Emily did not know how to respond. Part of her wanted to shut this down immediately, to remind him of the boundaries they had established, to protect herself from the possibility of being hurt again. But another part, the part that had been quietly growing for months, wondered if protection had become its own kind of prison. "I do not know what to say," she admitted. "You do not have to say anything. I did not tell you to pressure you or to create expectations. I told you because you asked for the truth, and the truth is that I am still in love with you. I probably never stopped being in love with you, but I also know that loving someone does not give you the right to be in their life. That is something that has to be earned. You have been earning it. For a year." Daniel nodded slowly. "And I will keep earning it, however long it takes, whether you ever feel the same way or not." Emily stood abruptly, walking to the window because looking at him was suddenly too much. Outside, the Denver night was cold and clear, stars visible in ways they never were in New York. "You broke me," she said quietly. "When you filed those papers, when you called me defective, when you chose your timeline over our future, you broke something in me that I am still trying to repair. I know. Do you? Do you really understand what it took for me to rebuild? Pregnant with triplets, alone in a new city, starting a business from nothing while raising 3 infants. There were nights I did not know if I would survive until morning. There were moments I wanted to give up so badly I could taste it." She turned to face him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I did all of that without you. I became who I am because you threw me away, and now you are here, being everything I once wanted you to be, and I do not know how to reconcile those two things. The man who destroyed me, and the man who has spent a year proving he is someone different. Daniel's face was wet too, she realized. Tears he was not trying to hide. You do not have to reconcile them, he said. Not tonight. Not ever, if you do not want to. I am not asking you to make peace with what I did. I am not asking you to forgive me, or trust me, or give me another chance. I am just asking you to let me keep being present, to let me keep showing up, whatever form that takes. Emily wiped her face with the back of her hand, the gesture making her feel young and vulnerable in ways she had not allowed herself to feel in years. What if I do not know what form I want it to take, she asked. Then we figure it out together, at whatever pace you need, with whatever boundaries make you feel safe. And if I never feel safe enough to let you all the way in, then I will stay exactly where I am, being the best father I can be, being your partner in raising our children, being whatever you need me to be, even if that is never more than this. Emily searched his face for signs of performance, for the calculated charm she remembered from their marriage. She found none. Only raw honesty and a vulnerability that looked almost painful. I need time, she said finally. Take all the time you need. I am not saying no. I am not saying yes. I am saying I do not know. That is enough. That is more than enough. They stood in her kitchen, separated by 3 feet of tile and 6 years of history, and for the first time since the ballroom, Emily felt something other than anger when she looked at him. She felt possibility. The next 6 months tested everything. Daniel continued to show up, continued to be consistent and present, and exactly who he had promised to be. But now there was something else in the air between them, something unspoken but undeniable. Emily found herself watching him differently, noticing the way he laughed with the children, the patience in his voice when they were difficult, the genuine joy on his face when he walked through her door. She found herself looking forward to his visits in ways that had nothing to do with Geo parenting, found herself disappointed on the rare evenings when work kept him away, found herself thinking about him at strange moments during meetings and phone calls and the quiet hours after the children were asleep. It terrified her. You are falling for him again, Grace observed one afternoon. They were at the park, watching the triplets play while Daniel pushed Kyla on the swings. I am not. You are. It is all over your face every time you look at him. Emily did not respond, which was response enough. Is that so terrible? Grace pressed. He's been proving himself for almost 2 years now. At what point does past behavior stop defining who someone is? When you have been hurt the way I was hurt, you do not just get over it because time has passed. No one is asking you to get over it. But Emily, Grace turned to face her, you deserve to be happy. Actually happy, not just surviving. And if there is even a chance that he could be part of that happiness, do you not owe it to yourself to explore it? What if he hurts me again? What if he does not? Emily watched Daniel across the park. He was laughing at something Kyla had said, his face open and joyful in a way she did not remember from their marriage. He looked lighter now, less burdened by expectation and ambition, more present in the moment he was actually living. I am scared, Emily admitted. I know, not just of being hurt, of believing, of letting myself hope and then watching it fall apart. That is the risk of loving anyone. But Emily, the alternative is living behind walls forever. And I have watched you do that for 6 years. It has kept you safe, but it has not made you happy. I am happy. You are content. There is a difference. Emily did not argue because she did not have an argument. Grace was right. She was content. She had built a life that was stable and successful and full of love for her children. But there was a part of her that remained locked away, protected, refusing to risk anything beyond what she could control. And for the first time in 6 years, she wondered if that protection was actually costing her more than it was saving. The shift happened on a Thursday evening. Nothing special about the day. The triplets were at Daniel's house for their weekly overnight, and Emily had planned a quiet evening of work and early sleep. But around 8 o'clock, restlessness overtook her. She found herself driving toward Daniel's house without fully deciding to go. Pulled into his driveway without knowing what she would say. Rang the doorbell with her heart pounding. Daniel answered with surprise on his face. Emily, is everything okay? Are the kids? The kids are fine. She paused, struggling to explain an impulse she did not understand. I wanted to see you. Something shifted in Daniel's expression. He stepped back from the door. "Come in." The triplets were asleep, she learned, had gone down easily after a movie and popcorn and the elaborate bedtime routine Daniel had mastered over the past 2 years. The house was quiet the way houses are quiet when children are sleeping, charged with the particular piece of responsibilities temporarily paused. "Do you want something to drink?" Daniel asked. "No, I want to talk." They sat in his living room, the same room where the children built forts and watched movies and created the chaos of their expanding family. But now it was still, the only sound the distant hum of the refrigerator. "I have been thinking," Emily began, "about what you said, about your story." Daniel nodded slowly. "Okay. For 2 years, you have been exactly who you promised to be. You have shown up every single day. You have been patient when I was difficult. You have put the children first in every situation. You have been a different person than the man I married." "I have tried." "No." She shook her head. "You have not just tried, you have done it. You have actually changed. I did not think that was possible. I spent 6 years believing that who you were when you threw me away was who you really were. But watching you with our children, watching you become someone I barely recognize." She paused, struggling for words. "I was wrong." Daniel's face was carefully neutral, as if he was afraid to hope. "What are you saying?" he asked. "I am saying that I do not know if I can trust you with my heart. I am saying that the idea of being vulnerable with you again terrifies me more than almost anything in the world. I am saying that every instinct I have is telling me to stay safe, to keep my walls up, to protect myself from the possibility of being hurt again." Emily stood and walked to the window, unable to be still. "But I am also saying that I am tired of being safe, tired of living behind walls, tired of watching you be everything I once wanted and refusing to believe it because I am scared. Emily, I am saying that I want to try, not to pretend the past did not happen, not to forgive you for everything in one moment, but to see if maybe, possibly, the story is not over, to see if the people we are now could build something different than what we destroyed." She turned to face him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I am saying that I still love you, that maybe I never stopped, and that makes me furious and terrified and hopeful all at once." Daniel crossed the room slowly, carefully, giving her time to retreat if she needed to. He stopped a foot away, his own eyes wet with emotion. "I have wanted to hear those words for 2 years, he said quietly. "Then why do you look so scared?" "Because I know what I am being given. I know what this costs you to say. And I know that if I mess this up, there will not be another chance." Emily laughed, the sound somewhere between joy and tears. "Then do not mess it up." "I will not." He reached out tentatively, his fingers brushing her cheek. "I promise you, on everything I have and everything I am, I will not mess this up." "Pretty words," Emily whispered. But for the first time, the words were not a rejection. They were an invitation. Daniel kissed her. Soft at first, tentative, the kiss of two people who had once known each other intimately and now had to learn each other all over again. But then something shifted, 6 years of suppressed emotion breaking through the careful boundaries they had maintained. When they finally pulled apart, Emily was shaking. "That was terrifying," she admitted. "I know. For me too." "What happens now?" Daniel tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture achingly familiar. "Now we take it slow. We figure out what this looks like for us, for the children, for the life we have built. We do not rush anything. We do not pretend the past does not matter. We just see where this goes, one day at a time." "That sounds reasonable. I have learned that reasonable is more sustainable than grand gestures." Emily laughed again, surprising herself. "When did you get so wise?" "Therapy. 2 years of it. Apparently, examining your failures with professional guidance leads to personal growth. Who knew?" They stood there in his living room, two people on the threshold of something new, terrified and hopeful in equal measure. "I should go," Emily said finally. "The children will wake up in the morning and everything will be chaos, and I need to process what just happened." "Okay, but Daniel..." "Yes, I'm glad I came over." His smile was the most genuine thing she had seen on his face in years. "Me too." The next morning, 3 small faces greeted Emily with varying levels of curiosity. "Why is Daddy smiling so much?" Kyra asked, studying Daniel with suspicion. "Can a person not just be happy?" Daniel replied. "You look weird happy, like you have a secret." King and Kyla exchanged glances, then looked between their parents with the knowing expressions of children who miss nothing. Did something happen? Kyla asked carefully. Emily met Daniel's eyes across the kitchen. A moment of silent communication passed between them. Your father and I have decided to spend more time together, Emily said. Outside of just being with you three. Like a date, King asked, his analytical mind cutting straight to the point. Maybe. We are figuring it out. But you used to be married, Kira protested, her face scrunched with confusion. And then you were not married. And now you are going on dates. That is weird. Grown-ups are complicated, Daniel offered. No kidding. But, Kyla said slowly, her empathetic eyes moving between her parents, does this mean we might all be together, like a real family, like Kyra's horse painting? The question hung in the air. Emily felt Daniel's gaze on her, waiting for her to set the parameters. It means we are trying, she said carefully. We do not know what the future looks like yet, but we are going to try to figure it out. And whatever happens, you three are the most important thing. That will never change. The triplets absorbed this with the remarkable adaptability of children who had already navigated more complexity than most. Okay, King said finally. But if you do get married again, can I plan the wedding? I have ideas about the structure of the venue. Let us not get ahead of ourselves. Emily laughed, but they were ahead of themselves. All of them. Moving towards something none of them could fully see, but all of them could feel. Before we reach the end of this story, I need to pause and speak directly to you one final time. We have traveled a long way together. From that first shocking moment in the ballroom to this kitchen where two people are trying to figure out if the story they thought was over might actually just be beginning. This is not a fairy tale. Emily is not magically healed by Daniel's transformation. Daniel is not absolved of his past by his present effort. The scars remain. The history cannot be erased. The path forward is uncertain and complicated and full of the kind of everyday work that does not make for dramatic scenes. But that is what makes it real. If you have been on this journey with us, if you have found yourself rooting for Emily and hoping Daniel could actually change, if you have thought about your own second chances and the people who hurt you and whether redemption is really possible, then I need you to do something. Hit that subscribe button if you have not already. This is Mr. Dawson's Stories, and this is what we do. We tell the truth about love and loss, about failure and redemption, about the messy, complicated work of becoming who we are meant to be. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, someone who has been thrown away by someone who did not see their worth, someone who is trying to become better than their worst moments, someone who needs to believe that the story is not over yet. And drop a comment. Tell me what you think. Did Daniel deserve this chance? Would you have given it to him? What does redemption look like in your life? Your engagement is not just numbers on a screen. It is how more people find stories that might change how they see the world. It is how we build a community of people who believe in the possibility of growth. Now let me tell you how this story ends. The ending came not with fireworks or grand gestures, but with the quiet accumulation of ordinary days. Days when Daniel showed up for breakfast and stayed for dinner. Days when the children stopped distinguishing between mommy's house and daddy's house and started simply saying home. Days when Emily let herself laugh without checking first to see if it was safe. 6 months after that Thursday evening, Daniel proposed. Not in a fancy restaurant or on a private rooftop or anywhere that resembled the first time. He proposed in Emily's kitchen, with flour on his shirt and pancake batter in his hair, while 3 children watched from the breakfast table with expressions ranging from excitement to mock disgust. I know I messed this up the first time, Daniel said, dropping to one knee with a ring box in his hand. I know I broke your trust and your heart and everything we had built together. I know there is nothing I can do to erase that history. Then why are you doing this? Emily asked, tears already streaming down her face. Because I have spent 2.5 years proving that I can be different, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving it too. Not to earn your forgiveness, not to redeem myself, just because being with you and our children is the only thing that has ever felt like home. He opened the ring box. Emily Coleman, will you marry me again? Knowing everything you know, having survived everything you survived. Will you give me one more chance to be the husband I should have been all along? The triplets were practically vibrating with anticipation. Say yes, Kyra whispered loudly. Say yes, Mommy. Emily looked at the man kneeling before her, at the flower in his hair and the vulnerability in his eyes, and the way his hand trembled slightly holding the ring. Yes, she said. The kitchen erupted, children screaming and jumping and nearly knocking Daniel over as they tackled him. Emily laughing and crying and feeling for the first time in years like the walls around her heart had finally come down completely. "I love you," Daniel said when he finally managed to stand up and put the ring on her finger. "I love you too. Against all odds and better judgment, I love you too." The wedding was small, intimate, nothing like the spectacle of their first marriage. Just family and close friends gathered in the backyard of Emily's house on a summer afternoon. Grace as maid of honor, still slightly suspicious but genuinely happy. The triplets as ring bearers and flower children, arguing about who got to walk down the aisle first. Daniel's parents did not attend. They had not approved of his transformation, had not understood why he would give up his New York life for a woman who had already failed him once. Daniel had stopped caring about their approval somewhere in the first year of proving himself. "This is what matters," he told Emily the night before the wedding. "You and our children and the life we have built. Everything else is noise." Standing at the altar, watching Emily walk toward him, Daniel felt the full weight of the journey that had brought them here. He had been a monster. He had destroyed the person he loved most because he was too cowardly to face his own fears. He had lost everything that mattered and spent 3 years pretending he was fine with the loss. And then he had seen 3 small faces in a ballroom and everything had changed. "Do you take this woman?" the officiant was saying. "I do." Daniel's voice was steady, certain, the voice of a man who understood exactly what he was promising. "And do you take this man?" Emily looked at him, at the man who had shattered her, at the man who had spent years rebuilding, at the father her children adored, and the partner who had proven day after day that people could change. "I do." The triplets cheered before the officiant could announce them married. Emily laughed, tears streaming down her face, and Daniel kissed her while their children surrounded them, a family made whole not through perfection but through persistence. 1 year after the wedding, Emily gave an interview for a business magazine doing a profile on Luminance Cosmetics. The interviewer asked about her success, her business philosophy, her plans for the future. But at the end, she asked something more personal. "You have an incredible story," the interviewer said. "Divorced, pregnant with triplets, built an empire from nothing, and now remarried to the same man who once left you. What would you say to other women who are going through difficult times?" Emily thought about the question carefully. "I would say that survival is not the same as living. For a long time, I thought just making it through was enough. I built walls to protect myself, and those walls kept me safe, but they also kept me isolated. They prevented me from experiencing joy because I was too focused on preventing pain." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "I would also say that redemption is possible, but it is not automatic. Daniel did not earn a second chance by being sorry. He earned it by changing, by showing up every single day and being different than he was before. That took years. It took patience. It took both of us being willing to do the hard work of building trust from scratch. And if someone is wondering whether to give their own second chance, I would say look at actions, not words. Anyone can apologize. Anyone can promise to be different. What matters is what they actually do, consistently, over time, without an audience or incentive. That is how you know if someone has really changed." The interview ended, and Emily returned home to find Daniel helping King with a school project, while Kyra practiced her dance routine in the living room, and Kyla read quietly in the corner. A normal evening, an ordinary moment, the kind of moment she had once thought was beyond her reach. "How was it?" Daniel asked. "Fine." "She asked about you, about us. What did you say?" Emily walked over and kissed him, a casual gesture that had become routine. "I said that you spent years earning the chance to be part of my life again, and that you have spent every day since continuing to earn it." Daniel smiled. "And will you continue to let me?" Emily looked around at the chaos and love and imperfect beauty of the life they had built. "I will," she said. "Every day. For as long as you keep showing up. I am not going anywhere." I know. The story could end here, with a happy family and a redeemed love and the satisfying conclusion of a journey that began in devastation and ended in joy. But real stories do not end. They continue. They evolve. They face new challenges and discover new strengths. What I can tell you is this: Daniel never stopped earning his place in Emily's life. He never reverted to the man he had been. He never let the children down or failed to show up or chose his old priorities over his new ones. Emily never fully forgot the pain of the past. Some wounds leave scars that remain forever. But she learned that scars did not have to prevent healing. That being vulnerable again was not the same as being foolish. that protecting herself from all possibility of pain also meant protecting herself from all possibility of joy. And the triplets, King and Kyra and Kyla, they grew up knowing both halves of their story. They knew that their father had once made terrible choices. They knew that their mother had rebuilt her life from nothing. They knew that redemption was possible, but that it required work, real work, every single day. It was not a perfect family, but it was a real one, forged not in the absence of failure, but in the determined response to it. If there is one lesson in this story, it is this: the people who throw us away often miss out on the very thing they claimed they wanted. Daniel threw Emily away because she could not give him children, and in doing so, he missed 5 years of the children he always wanted. But the more important lesson is this: we can build lives so beautiful, so complete, that the people who underestimated us become irrelevant to our happiness. Emily built an empire and raised 3 children and became exactly who she was meant to be, all without Daniel. She did not need him to come back. She was complete without him. She chose to let him back in not because she needed him, but because she was strong enough to risk again. Because she understood that real love is not about need. It is about choice, about waking up every day and choosing to trust someone with your heart, even when you know they could hurt you. That is not weakness. That is the kind of strength that can only come from surviving the unsurvivable. And that is the kind of love worth having. So here is my final question for you. What is your story? Who has thrown you away without seeing your worth? Who have you underestimated, including yourself? What walls have you built that might be keeping out not just pain, but possibility? You do not have to answer right now, but I hope you will think about it. I hope you will consider that maybe, possibly, the story is not over yet. That maybe there are chapters you have not written, endings you have not discovered, transformations you have not imagined. This is Mr. Dawson Stories. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring about Emily and Daniel and 3 small children who just wanted their family to be together. Remember that you are worthy of second chances. Remember that survival is just the beginning. Remember that the people who cannot see your value are the ones who lose the most. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another story like this one. And leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Tell me your own story of second chances and redemption. Tell me whether you believe in the possibility of change. This community is not just about watching videos. It is about connecting with other people who believe in messy, complicated, absolutely real human stories. I am Mr. Dawson. This has been Mr. Dawson Stories, and I will see you in the next one.